Aloha and welcome to Navigating the Next Normal. We're going to start in a few moments, just to give everybody a minute to get into the room. We'll be starting shortly. We will be starting in a moment, just giving people a chance to assemble. The conversation will begin shortly. We will be starting the conversation in a moment. People are still joining the Zoom room, so hang on for a second and we will begin. Aloha and welcome to the webinar, Navigating the Next Normal. My name is Steve Petranek and I am the editor of Hawaii Business Magazine. Thank you for joining us today. I will moderate today's discussion, which will begin in a moment. But first, a few words about the host of this webinar, CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. Here is Jason Fujita, Vice President of Sales for CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. Jason.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. So most of you are familiar with who Hawaiian Telcom is, but who is CBTS? So CBTS Hawaiian Telcom is a leading technology provider that delivers networking, security, cloud, infrastructure, communications, and consulting solutions to clients not only across North America, but here in Hawaii. CBTS launched in Hawaii last January, and the technical expertise of CBTS Hawaii, together with the local sales and support teams and our advanced technology solutions, is a powerful combination. When you combine that with our Hawaiian Telcom next generation fiber network, it creates an incredibly unique set of solutions. Our mission is to help local businesses implement innovative, transformative technologies that drive desired outcomes. So what does CBTS stand for? Everyone knows we love our acronyms. It stands for Consult, Build, Transform, and Support. We start engagements with consulting, which includes performing assessments, gaining an understanding of your business goals and challenges, and ultimately advising you on technology and strategies to achieve successful outcomes. Our certified engineers then design and build custom solutions that fit your financial preference, whether you have an OpEx or CapEx model, and achieves your business objectives. Our solutions then transform your business by improving operational efficiency and agility, reducing risk, and improving the experience you provide to your customers. Lastly, and probably most importantly, our support teams are the best and brightest professionals in the industry. They act as an extension of your team and keep your success as their number one priority. I'd just like to end by saying, I know COVID has caused historic challenges for our business community. We are certainly not immune to that. My hope is today you get some value from our discussion that could help your business in a small or large way to continue to survive and even thrive in this next normal. Because at the end of the day, There is no CBTS Hawaiian Telcom without you. Without our local businesses, without our employees, without your employees, there is no need for us. And as a 24-year employee, I could not be more grateful for your support. And I hope that you get value out of today. With that, I thank you for attending, and I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Thank you, Jason. Let's get my camera back on. There we go. And for all of us, you know, the pandemic has changed how we do business. And technology has played a huge role in that. During our discussion, we will talk about what changes are here to stay. A big focus will be on how your business should continue to evolve for customers and employees, and how to stay ahead of your competition. We will talk about how businesses strike a balance between working remotely and working in the office, and about what steps you can take to modernize your processes for maximum impact. But first, we'd like to ask you in the audience a few questions. And this quick poll is a good way to see how your company compares to other local businesses. So please take this poll as we go through it. Just 3 questions. Kira, let's launch that. So you can see the 3 questions there. And the first question is, here's the first question rather. How has the pandemic affected the way you run your internal and external IT systems? And by external, we mean those that are accessed by your customers and your vendors. And there are the choices: no changes, minimal changes, and major changes. And please choose one of those. You know, I know that at Hawaii Business Magazine, we're making major changes to our website, hawaiibusiness.com, so we can post more stories and reach more people effectively. So we're making major changes. That's what I'm selecting. Kira, do we have some results? Let's see now. We've got most people making minimal changes, but no, it's about half are making minimal changes, and almost as many are making major changes. We have a small group at just minimal, no changes at all. So we're definitely making, most of us are making changes, and a large percentage of us, almost 40%, are making major changes. Interesting result. So let's go on to our second question, which is, currently, do your employees all or almost all work from home most days of the week? And second option, you've got a split, many working from home and many in the office or other work locations. And the third option is almost all of you are working in the office or your other locations. Maybe it's a warehouse or a branch of your operation, and you're doing that most days of the week. So it's most of you working from home most days of the week, or most in the office, and then the middle one is like an in-between answer. And interestingly, I read about a poll conducted by PXC, which is what used to be called PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they did a national survey of executives asking how many days a week should employees be in the office to maintain the company culture. And then they also surveyed employees on the question of how many days would you prefer to be working from home versus working in the office. Not surprisingly, on average, the executives wanted their employees in the office more than the employees wanted to be in the office. But what was surprising, the difference between those viewpoints was small, 10% or less. So it seems like most executives, at least based on this survey, accept that there will be a lot of remote work after the pandemic. And of course, the emphasis is going to vary from company to company. So let's see the results of this second question. So again, most of the people are split between two answers. All or almost all work from home most days. And that's 45%, almost half, but also a large number, many work from home and many work from the office. In this case, only a small percentage, 15%, that's about 1 in 6, 1 in 7, work most of the time in the office. So that's an interesting result. We're still, a lot of us are still working from home, And a lot of us are doing that most of the time. Okay, we're going to put up one more question. And this is about the future. So I want you to make a prediction about the post-pandemic future. It's the same answers as before, but it's about what's going to happen when the pandemic is fully over. Are almost all of your employees going to be working from home most days of the week? Are you going to have that split of many working from home and many in the office? Or are you going to have that where most of the people work in the office most days of the week? And we're going to add a don't know, since this is about the future. You're predicting about the future here rather than what is happening right now. And the PXC, the Price Waterhouse Coopers survey suggests that in the new normal, only a minority of white collar businesses will be working from the office all or most of the time. So let's see the answers to our last question. Interesting. So very few of you, I guess about 1 in 7 in each case, 1 in 6, 1 in 7 see it going to be a most from home or most at the office situation. 40% of you see something in the middle, where it's probably going to be maybe a few days at home, maybe a few days at the office in each week. So that's an interesting outlook. Thank you for participating in the poll. Next, let's meet our panelists. Matt Freeman is the Director of Service Delivery for CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. Adrian Chi is Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for Central Pacific Bank. And Brad Koanui is the Vice President, Chief Information Officer, and Program Manager for Pacific Guardian Life. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. Please turn on your cameras and your microphones. A quick note that we are welcoming questions from the audience at any time. I have my Q&A box over here on my second screen. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in at any time into using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. So my first question to all the panelists, what are the big IT challenges you are seeing now? And Matt, I want to start with you because you work for CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. So not only do you have internal IT needs, but you're solving the IT challenges for your customers too. Big challenges.
Definitely. And thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks a lot to our panelists, and thanks for everybody for attending today. I think one of the biggest challenges of this work from home experience over the last year was how quickly it came about. A lot of businesses, almost all businesses, were most concerned about the safety of their employees and their customers. And so we had to switch models very quickly. And that had a lot of budget impacts. That had a lot of decision making and prioritization impact that had to be made very quickly. And a year gone from those decisions, now we're dealing with, how do we continue to pay for this? Do we continue to budget for the hybrid work environment? Are we going to continue to invest in these tools that have really made this work from home successful? So a lot of business leaders are struggling with that decision. Do they bring everybody back into the office? Do they continue to invest in these remote efficiency tools? And I think the poll results kind of reflected that. It's going to be a mixed environment, and those may cost more if you're not necessarily working with your vendors and your tool providers to get you the right combination of services.
Adrian, big IT challenges and changes at Central Pacific Bank.
Yeah, I think adding on to what Matt has just shared, that continues to be something that, for our IT teams, is making sure that we can continue to keep our hybrid workforce connected and available and enabled at all times to deliver on our strategic initiatives. Adding on to that, just managing innovation overall with the distributed workforce has been a challenge that we continue to, and we're still figuring it out. We haven't figured out what that is, but we're doing what we can with what we know and with what we have in place today. And I think that we'll continue to have that discussions as we move forward.
Adrian, I'm going to come back to you in a moment about customers, but first I want to ask Brad that same big IT issues, challenges question for you and your team at Pacific Guardian Life.
Sure. In our situation, I mean, mobilizing staff was something we needed to do quickly, and we needed to figure out innovative ways of doing that. But having our staff work from home posed two other challenges for IT. One is securing and providing security, enough security where staff working from home can be productive, but we can also still protect our data, our systems, all the technology assets. And then also being able to support a remote workforce. It's one thing to support staff who are in the office where we can visit them if they have a problem, but our challenge was how do we support not only staff working on our systems from home, but also working on their own computer. So it posed a challenge, support challenge for us, as well as a security one. But I think we put in a lot of features and tools and services to overcome that.
Mm-hmm. Matt, I want to come back to you about that. What are the kind of tools and services that your customers are asking for? Because, excuse me, you're managing productivity, you're managing remote work, and those arise issues. The boss is no longer looking over your shoulder to see what you're doing. So what kind of things that are your customers asking for and needing?
So I think the most immediate impact was bandwidth, more bandwidth. We have so many people working from home. We've seen a lot of residential service upgrades. We've seen larger internet pipes deployed at data centers and core office locations so that the remote workers can continue to perform their core duties with enough internet bandwidth. Along that, we've also seen a lot more managed firewalls, and we need to help secure the business and the remote workers. And so between those services, we've seen a lot more bundling of services that help businesses work efficiently, securely while working remote. And so that's firewalls, that's internet, and IT support services. That's really what's been crucial for businesses to keep going.
Matt, I'm going to pat myself on the back because I had the prescience before the pandemic to sign up for your 1 gigabyte service. And it was absolutely essential because I got my daughter working, one floor down. My wife's working. We're all on calls at the same time. Where she's a software engineer, so she's loading up code all the time. It's crazy. And if we didn't have a huge bandwidth, it would have been everybody yelling at each other to turn off your computer while I get my work done. But thankfully, that didn't happen. So Adrian, at Central Pacific Bank, you need to service customers who don't want to visit a bank branch. And then you need to service those who need to or want to visit a branch. And at the same time, you mentioned you got those people working remotely, but let's focus on those customers for a while. And, a lot of us are using your remote services and to make deposits and how did the bank adjust to all of that?
Yeah, so funny enough, the pandemic has really deepened our relationships with our customers. We became not just bankers, we became Ohana, we became their support. Everything was catapulted into a digital world so very quickly. And so, our younger clientele, not so hard to adapt, but we also have older clientele out there that had no idea what to do. And so, across the organization and even in our branches, all of our team members became IT support, helping, walking our customers through how to set up mobile applications, how to log in, how to connect, and then simply just how to use the tools. Definitely for the bank, the focus was all about delivering our services digitally so that our consumers and our business customers could continue to do their banking. Mm-hmm. And so it really has deepened our relationships with our customers, definitely grown into a sense of ohana and trust and deep engagement.
I want to follow up with the PPP loans, especially because CPB did a bang up job with getting so many of their customers loans and getting them in those applications in quickly. And I guess all of that was done over the, remotely and so on, because people weren't going down to the bank and filling out the application and everything. Tell us a little bit. That was craziness for a little while, because the people were worried the money was going to run out before they got their application approved.
Yeah, and that was a very creative. It was creative design, creative teamwork amongst everyone across the organization, not just with IT, but with our digital teams. Um, and it was everyone leaning on each other to bring in big ideas, and how we can deliver very quickly. Everything, of course, had to be now, but it was a concerted effort across the organization, across a hybrid workforce. We had people working from home, we had people working in the office. But it was a team effort, and just very creative, very open, and everyone was just really focused at the time on the businesses. How do we help them? How do we help them, thrive in this pandemic?
Brad, I want to ask you about that customer question, because insurance is a very personal issue. People deal with their agent on a very personal level, because life insurance is a very personal thing, and suddenly you didn't have weren't able to make or maintain that in-person relationships. How did you make the transition to a more remote relationship with your customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously we used services like Zoom, like Microsoft Teams, and that was essentially our way of connecting with our current customers. We would provide services to them. We actually set up a room, dedicated for just that purpose, where we can engage with the customer. So we provided that, but even on our business side, where they wanted different types of services, and we recognized that we needed to step it up when it comes to offering our business customers services like online payment transactions, right? Something as simple as online payments. We needed to introduce that, and we did. And we're continuing to look for ways to not only serve our personal lines customers, but even our business customers as well.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question I'm going to ask of all three of you, and I'm going to start with Matt on this one. But all of your companies have been around for years, for decades, and that means you've had a lot of processes that depended on paper. But I know all of you have made changes, and because of the pandemic, or even because you were doing that anyways pre-pandemic, moving away from these traditional paper processes. Matt, can you describe how that looked like at CBTS Hawaiian Telcom?
It's surprisingly well. It worked surprisingly well for a company that was founded in the 1880s. So we rely on paper a lot for a lot of different processes internally, but the advanced services business unit that's under CBTS, we've kind of breathed technology for the last decade. So we really had a very easy transition moving towards the hybrid environment. We had all the tools in place, and we had been supporting that for customers for many years. So for us, that type of transition away from paper wasn't as hard as you would think for a company of our age and size. Yeah.
Well, good. Adrian, we talked about this earlier about, in my mind, I was thinking mortgages, because, I've had a few refis over the years, and that was always done in person. And I'm suspecting that's not always happening in person. Talk about some of those paper processes that you've had to digitize and so on.
Yeah, Steve, great question. So yes, definitely in the bank, mortgages, PPP loans, all of the business that we're doing, we've implemented tools for e-signing, and then also just we've stood up a lot of secured portals for uploading documents and downloading documents. I think just the disbursement of workforce and going into this digital platforms with audio and video meetings has just automatically moved everyone to a paperless environment. It was tough. I'm not going to, it was tough for the bank. It was this big shift for us because everything was paper. And then we had to figure out, how do we do this, electronically? And we're at the point where we've gotten it down, but it wasn't an easy transformation. It wasn't an easy transition for us. It
Yeah.
took some time.
Brad, I think you're going to tell us it was simple, really. It totally.
You know, Steve, I wish I could, but no, I can't do that. And we had a similar situation where a lot of our operations was dependent on paper, and we handled a lot of paper. But it was handling a lot of paper and working at home just doesn't work, right? Especially when you're talking about customer information. So we went into high-speed digitization mode. We bought a bunch of desktop scanners, and everyone in the different departments had access to it, and we were digitizing documents, it seemed like, for weeks. And we even hired a few interns to help us out, to get some of these contract documents scanned, because we needed to. That was the only way that our key part of our business could work from home, because they needed to access it securely online or through a VPN connection. And yeah, that was quite a crazy undertaking, but we managed to get through.
So Brad, you've got the microphone, so hang on to it for a sec, because I got a question that you suggested to me. That your thoughts on how the pandemic has affected business continuity and disaster recovery planning. This was a disaster, and a lot of us, I think most of us, were not prepared for this kind of disaster. We had other things like hurricanes in mind. What's changed about business continuity and disaster recovery planning?
Yeah, so with disaster recovery plans, you think about accessibility to an office, for example, and being able to resume a portion of your operations in a disaster situation where you can't return, or you can't get to the office and return your operations to full capacity. So most disaster recovery plans look at the essential parts of an operation. They look at maybe a subset of staff that will just get these services done. But in the pandemic situation, we had to figure out how to resume full operations with staff working, not only part staff working in the office, but a lot of staff working from home. And rethinking that model, because our disaster recovery plan specifically was looking at, we would place our servers and all our systems either in the cloud, hosted, or in some other location, but maybe we would mobilize and move staff to one single location and work from there. But in this case, now we have to factor in that one, staff may be working from home. We may not have the opportunity to get staff to work in the same location. And then the second thing is the length of time that we have to factor in. Some disaster recovery plans only focus on limited operations for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. The pandemic was over a year since when the government orders came down to kind of lock down the state a little bit. Mm-hmm. That in itself is something we didn't plan for, but we figured it out.
Matt, I want to ask you about that too, because you're helping your customers with disaster recovery plans in this case. But so has the planning changed? Are you telling your customers, and are they looking for the next unexpected disaster in different ways than they were maybe before the pandemic happened?
I think to some degree there, what constitutes a disaster has expanded. Traditionally we focus on hurricanes, power outages, volcanoes, things like that. And those present a major disruption to the critical infrastructure of delivering internet to businesses across the state. Mm-hmm. The inability to come together and perform work is a different type of disaster that Brad was describing. And so a lot of the business disaster recovery plans that we've seen with our customers didn't take that into account. And, to be fair, Hawaiian Telcom's plan didn't necessarily plan for that either. And so over the last 9 months, we've seen a lot more engagements with our customers where we help modernize or review and improve their disaster recovery policies and procedures through our consulting practice.
So we've gotten a couple of questions from the audience, so I'm going to jump to those now. I still have a few of my questions, but let's, and this is I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to answer this, but the attendee watched the State of the Union speech yesterday from the president, and he was talking about in this person's term, throwing around a lot of money. Well, we've heard that in the infrastructure plan and the stimulus plan. Is there money in any of these discussions, whether they were part of the bill that was passed in January, the second stimulus, or actually the third stimulus bill tied to COVID, or in the infrastructure plan that is not passed by Congress, but has been proposed and is being debated, or what the president said that may support businesses in the, let's stick to the technology realm. Anything on your radar? And I apologize, that might be a tough one. What do you have any thoughts on that?
I'll give it a shot. I think, first we need to let some time go and see how those bills get presented and what's actually included in it, so that, the business leaders can help make informed decisions about what's available out there. And then, business programs would start working to see what funding's available. I have seen some interesting stuff about, providing more affordable internet, lower cost internet services across the nation. Hawaiian Telcom has been deploying a lot of fiber across Oahu, and we're starting to expand into other areas. So we definitely look to use some of that federal funding to provide higher speed services across the state and areas that we're not currently providing. So that will indirectly help some businesses out there that aren't able to take advantage of high speeds. Through that funding, we'll be able to enable more areas for you.
Yeah, that's true. The infrastructure proposal does have a lot of money for broadband nationwide. So I would assume Hawaii would get some of that. Here's a second question, and I'm guessing this is directed again at you, Matt. Do you consult with very small businesses? And this person said just like a couple of employees, maybe a mom and pop.
Absolutely. We're here to help every business, whether they're in Hawaii or whether they're in the mainland. So work with your Hawaiian Telcom CBTS Hawaii account manager. They'll get you connected based on what your business provides and what you think you might need. If you're not really sure what questions to ask, then they'll just connect you with one of our experts, and we'll go through an assessment process with you. We'll talk about your business, we'll talk about your struggles, and we'll help you identify where technology might help improve your day-to-day operations so that you can focus on your core business while potentially Hawaiian Telcom helps manage your day-to-day IT support. And that's something that we've been providing for quite a while, is helping small businesses, even really small businesses, with cost-effective solutions so that they can focus on their core business. I mean, IT can be tough. Finding and retaining the right talent can be tough and expensive. And so service providers like CBTS Hawaii, we take on a lot of the costs for you, and we staff a very deep bench of technical experts that can help in a wide areas. So that's a long way of saying absolutely yes, we would love to talk to everybody and see what your business needs are and how we might be able to help.
Well, it seems like the perfect time to bring up this the slide. Kira, can you bring up the slide? So here is how you can get that free consultation with CBTS Hawaiian Telcom. It's we're gonna see a QR code, there we go. And so if you go ahead and just scan that QR code, or you can, look at this website address there, but the QR code will make things simple. And it's a free 1-hour consultation with an IT architect. They'll help you assess your technology efficiencies, all those things that Matt talked about for your business. So there's a very personal one-on-one evaluation. So, and you can go ahead too, also in the chat box, if you open up the chat window, you can see that the link is there, so for a free consultation. So go ahead and leave that slide up for a moment, Kira, and I'm gonna go on with my questions here. Let's see, we've talked about that. Let's gaze into our crystal balls, and so I'm gonna give you a moment to think about this. What will be a trend in your business's technology over the next year or two? And I'm, Adrian, we talked about AI, automation and AI at the bank. It's a way of freeing up your employees to do higher end work. Tell us about that. And then I'm going to come to Brad and Matt about the crystal ball, the trend that you see in your business's technology over the next year or two.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so at the bank, we have, a concerted effort going on around introducing artificial intelligence and AI as a means of augmenting staff and not replacing staff or reducing staff, but really using automation, robotic process automation, machine learning, if you will, to help automate those repetitive processes that can free up our people's time. And so that's where a lot of our focus is, and that's a trend definitely that we're going to continue on in the next year.
Cool. Brad, your crystal ball for the next year or two?
My crystal ball. Well, for PGL specifically, I mean, we are going to be looking at robotic process automation to do and take care of some of those repetitive and somewhat time-consuming tasks, because our business needs to focus on other things. Technologies that are already out there, like chat, right? Chat bots where you have some AI built in it. There's some automation. We can help customers when we're not in the office, and that's also an important thing, because as we grow our business and we want to grow our business beyond Hawaii, it's like we need to be available for our customers abroad, especially on the U.S. mainland. So that will using those types of technologies will help us provide customer service and also be more productive in the office.
And Matt, tell us what your crystal ball is telling you.
So my crystal ball is looking at more blended services, more bundled services, so that businesses can continue to focus on their core product or their core service that they provide. And so, I know CBTS Hawaiian Tel is really looking at how this, the last year impacted businesses and how we can help provide a better combination of services so that we can help with a network and a security and a voice and an infrastructure and a compute strategy all rolled into one. So we've developed a help desk service that we launched, late last year, that helps kind of blend some of those things together by also not only providing the internet connection or the infrastructure like the firewall, but also the services to help provide that support. So by blending all that together, businesses will be able to work with a trusted partner to get everything they need in the IT realm in one space. And I think that's going to make businesses more effective in the future. And it's definitely going to drive our strategy on how we deliver services.
Cool. If you missed that QR code that was on the screen earlier, you can just look in the chat box and there's a link there for those free consultations with Hawaiian Telcom's IT architects. Couple more questions from our audience. I'm looking over here on my side screen. Fiber and high-speed internet is important. And we saw that there are rural areas that are of Hawaii that do not have that kind of broadband service that we get here, maybe on Oahu and a lot of other places. And we saw that especially in education, that some kids were not able to do the schoolwork that became remote. What's happening, Matt, to address that issue?
Mm-hmm. So a couple of things. CBTS Hawaiian Tel has invested over $500 million over the last 10 years in expanding our fiber footprint across all the islands. Over the last couple of years, more recently, we've participated in a program called the Connect America Fund, which helps specifically to provide high-speed internet via fiber to rural areas, underserved areas that don't necessarily qualify for, high-speed infrastructure being deployed. So there's funds specifically provided by the government that helps us build to those areas, because every student deserves a high-speed internet to be able to continue their learning.
And as we mentioned earlier, that's part of the proposal that President Biden has on the infrastructure, that broadband is a huge part of that, and rural areas are a huge part of that part of the infrastructure plan. Another question, anyone using tools like Slack among all employees to maintain real-time connectivity to emulate a real office desk-to-desk environment? Or any suggestions for similar tools? So Slack is one, but maybe there's some other tools. Anyone using anything in their office that they think is a good solution for replicating the in-office environment?
Steve, at the bank, we're not using Slack broadly. We are using it in our environment for specific use cases and specific areas. For example, in our digital innovation teams, being connected all the time, real time is important. And so that is a tool that we do use for specific purposes, specific areas.
Uh-huh. I just personal experience, we tried using Slack, and I'll be honest, my personal experience, it was just one more channel on top of texting and phoning and emails and, teleconferencing. And it didn't replace them all. So eventually we stopped using it. But I realized that I was, I grew up in the Jurassic period. So maybe I'm not as in tune with these things as younger people are. But yep, some people love it. Here's another question. Here's someone who answered it that we're using to the Slack question. We use Microsoft Teams internally and like it. Slack is great as well, but Teams has some great Office 365, some Office 365 integration. So that makes sense. If you're using Microsoft products and Word and Outlook and all those, and if Teams integrates well with it, which it does, yeah, that's a good solution. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down here. Satellite internet, is that a possibility? Matt, maybe you're best qualified to answer that one.
We're not currently in the space industry at CBTS Hawaiian Tel, but I think there's definitely opportunity for more satellite connectivity in the Pacific region. I hear Elon Musk is up to something with his SpaceX company launching a new satellite program. That should be coming soon to Hawaii, and we can see how that actually pans out.
Okay, another question for you, Matt. Can you provide examples of how you specifically helped a small business, say with less than 50 employees, maybe saving money, saving time, a few of those common issues and solutions that you've provided to those small businesses?
Sure. I think one of the most common ways that we identify, savings for small businesses is bundling services that they've got spread across different providers. By combining our business voice solution with our high-speed internet solutions and our managed firewall solutions, you get a lot of, IT support bundled into that. And by bundling the services together with CBTS Hawaii, you also get a lower rate than you might by sourcing some of those things independently. And we love to bundle. Our account managers are bundling experts. They know all the different services that we offer and how to layer them together to really help businesses. And many of our customers are less than 15 employees. That's one of the, we have some more smaller businesses on the advanced services side than I would say we have some of those, super large businesses. So it's a very common space for us. And I think the important thing on where we save time and money for you is helping to understand what your business need is. What resources are you kind of struggling with? What services do we offer? And then we work out the right combination to help kind of save you some time and money. For that anonymous attendee, I would definitely encourage you to reach out, and we could set up some time to discuss your particulars.
So I touched on this earlier, but I think it's worth, because there's a question here, I think it's worth revisiting. We always worried about, even though we knew the employee was sitting there for 8 hours a day, we had trouble understanding how productive that employee was. And there were, if you're in sales, of course, the sales that you close, that was a great measure. But for some of us, like say, I'm in the editing and writing business, you have to measure quantity and quality and those sorts of things. What technology is helping us make those measurements? Because now with people working at home, we can't even tell if they actually are sitting at their computer for 8 hours a day, or if they're playing, Warcraft or whatever, or watching Netflix. What tools can help us do that? And I don't mean them in the big brother sense of the term, but we have to know who's productive and in order to encourage that productivity. What can technology do to help us with that problem?
Steve, at Pacific Garden, at least in the IT department, we track all our assignments and requests in a system that we have a help desk system. We also have a system where we track service requests for our applications. All of that is tracked. Our teams, our managers, we work directly with our staff, a lot of them on a daily basis to make sure that we're checking in and making sure work is getting done. Some of these assignments are date sensitive, so we need to ensure that we can get that work done. In other areas of our company, it's all assignment based as well, and we have to track and make sure that whatever assignments were provided for the day, that by the end of the day that it'll get done. And it might be something even as simple as a tracking log to track those assignments in Microsoft Excel. And it's just we had to use whatever tools were available at the time to track activities. But just a couple perspectives from an IT and an operations perspective.
I'd also like to kind of plug the Microsoft Teams from earlier. I think it's such an integrated tool that it helps with availability and instant communications, right? It has a video chat right next to a text chat, right next to a calendar integration, right next to a SharePoint integration and a file sharing integration. So you can really get as close to being as in office as possible by using a tool set like that and using many of the features. We also have a ticketing system. I think most IT operations groups have a ticketing system, and man, we love our metrics here at CBTS Hawaii. We've got pages and pages of dashboards that tell us hourly optimization and utilization and all kinds of things. So if anybody's interested in having a demo of our kind of dashboarding solutions, we can help you with that as well.
I'm going to turn the discussion. Someone is asking a question that's going to turn the discussion completely 180 degrees, and that's about not the productivity of the employees, but their emotional well-being. And I'm going to cite. I'm going to be totally honest. I was on a call. We had a managers meeting and 2 days ago, and I was tired, and I'd been on Zoom calls all day and other calls, and I just kind of got testy with my boss, and she handled it really well. She just went on with the meeting, and then we talked afterwards, and I apologized. But I think a lot of people are going through that. Your Zoom calls are they're actually different than a meeting, because if you're not looking at the camera, people think you're disengaged, and whereas in a meeting, if you're staring off into space, you could be totally engaged, and people understand that you're thinking about what's being said. But in a small way, I had a little bit of burnout 2 days ago, and I got snappy with my boss. How are we dealing with that, and how can technology help with that?
Yeah, hey Steve, I can start off. I can tell you at the bank, we put a great deal of time and emphasis in communication across the organization, and empowering our leaders to make the right decisions when needed. But I think the most important thing was just the encouragement of our leaders to do consistent outreach, one-on-one calls, at any time, whether it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and really the focus around those calls. And they were video calls to the extent that was possible. But really just to do a check-in on how are their, their office setup doing for them, their IT capabilities. Do they have the tools necessary? What kinds of things do they need to be able to do their jobs efficiently? But a lot of that was also an emotional check-in. And then, just talk story sessions about work-life integration, not about work-life balance, but really around work-life integration. How are you managing to balance work at home and your life with your family and making sure that you get the social interaction that you need to maintain and sustain in this difficult times. Mm-hmm. So for us, a lot of it was outreach, talk story, tried to limit it to, just really focusing on the employees.
Jason had a comment here, to sort of an answer too, that they call it the step up method. You know, if ordinarily you'd send a text message, maybe make a call, because that's a more human to human connection. And if you were going to make a call, maybe make that video to keep that human to human interaction alive while working remotely. And I know, you know, I love the team I work with, and I really miss having them around. On the other hand, you know, not having that 40-minute commute each way every day. So that's, you know, over an hour, that's an hour and a half. Not having that made my quality of life better in that way. Less human interaction, but, you know, maybe more time for the getting my job done, and maybe, you know, going for a walk or a swim and that sort of thing too. So there's a balance here. Another great question here, and it's about in the success of remote working. How do you think about your pool of employee talent that you would consider in the future, since location is no longer an option? Are we moving to, well, it's a 24/7 world, but I was thinking also a geographically more diverse world. You know, is that candidate who's working in Hilo, can they now start working for a company based in Honolulu, or vice versa? And you know, yes, that 24/7 thing. Are we thinking of people who are not in our time zone, but maybe would be a good fit? Maybe they're from here, they had to move for personal reasons. Your thoughts on those issues?
Yes, Steve, I really think that the pandemic proved the model that staff can, you know, talent can work from home, right? And talent can be anywhere. I think, you know, now a lot of businesses are opening up to the idea that, you know, we can hire talent from abroad and have them work remotely. I think that just gives us options, not only as consultants, but even as full-time employees. And you know, if you're operating in different time zones, I think that's also going to be an important part of the business, is ensuring that you have coverage to provide support to your customers. It may mean that you need to hire someone that's living on the East Coast in order to support your customers on that part of the mainland. So I really think it opens up opportunities for local businesses to you know, grow and look for other ways of improving operations and increasing you know, talent in their company.
We got two more questions. So what changes to IT policy did your organization need to do? So, and this is something that's beyond my realm. So is that something you had to do? Did you had to actually change policies, the written policies, and train employees on what the new policies work, and possibly give us some examples of those?
Yeah, I'll add to that one. I'll start with that one. So at PGL, you know, we had capability to do work at home, but actually doing your job at home was slightly a different thing, especially if you're dependent on things in the office. So, you know, we really didn't have quite a robust work at home policy. So we had to build one rather quickly. It was more from an IT perspective. We also had operational policy as well, but the policy was all about how you manage your environment at home, your technology at home. You know, ensuring that you have certain types of services available within your space, so that, you know, you take home a laptop, or you're taking, in our case, we actually sent folks home with a microform factor PC and 2 monitors, because they needed that for their operation, but ensuring that all things that were necessary to secure and protect the equipment was you know, in place, as well as having a suitable place to do your work. And we had to put some guidelines and rules around that.
Yeah, Adrian, you're a regulated industry. Banking's regulated as much as anybody. You know, the nuclear industry and banking are regulated. You know, what policies, can you describe a few of the policies that you had to, written policies maybe, that you had to change and educate your employees on?
I think the biggest policies for the bank moving into this hybrid workforce or even remote workforce was really educating our workforce around what flexible workplace meant, whether what it meant and what it didn't mean. It didn't mean that you were just because you were working from home, you were immune to and not required to follow cybersecurity policies, data protection policies, safety policies. All of those things were still applied. So it was more of an education around, you are it's in your new work location is an extension of the bank. It is not a replacement, and so you are still required to adhere to existing policies. But I think for us, it just heightened more of our cyber and information security policies, making sure that data at home was protected, that you used the same type of security view of your workstation, making sure that, if you had customer information up online, that was protected from view from other people that may be around you. Destruction of printout, if you printed anything out, was well destroyed, and precautions followed, guidance followed. So I think for us it was more educating people about what work from home meant, what it is and what it isn't.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
We've got less than 5 minutes left, and I got two more questions. So let's, what I'm going to do first is someone is asking about your biggest takeaways. So why don't you think about that? Biggest takeaways your companies learned from the pandemic, and then let's deal with this other question first. And do you see the amount of floor space, office floor space changing? Less, more? Brad, I see you nodding. So what do you think? Is PGL going to have less office space in 2 or 3 years?
We're definitely discussing that, which is why I'm smiling, because we're looking at, if we have a hybrid workforce, how much floor space do we really need? But at the same time, we also want to be cognizant that keeping the appropriate spacing within the different areas, we take that into consideration. So we're right now sort of having that discussion and really thinking about that for sure.
I think a lot of companies are having that discussion. So it's interesting. And of course, you can't act immediately because you're probably locked into a lease. So you have a few years in which to think it over and see how this all shakes out. So let's end on that. Big takeaways. What did your companies learn from the pandemic, the past year and a half, or not quite year and a half, I'm sorry, year and a couple months, and things that you learned that maybe are going to help your business, to help your customers, all those things. Who wants to start? Matt, can you?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I would say it's how interconnected we are. With the pandemic, our health is tied to our neighbor's health, right? The social distancing and the masks are essential over the last year to maintain everybody's health and safety, but also our businesses are so interconnected. People in the restaurant or the hospitality industry, they were really struggling. The communities had to help, adapt to the takeout model by help keeping the businesses afloat. Businesses like Hawaiian Telcom and CBP and Pacific Guardian had to help work with our businesses to make sure that they had funds available to help keep them in business so that we could all get through this pandemic together. And I think that's going to continue, hopefully, going forward. Is we need to recognize how much of a business ecosystem we have here in Hawaii, where we're so connected that we need to continue to support each other wherever and however we can.
Adrian, the big takeaways that your company, that Central Pacific Bank, had from the last 14 months?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaways is, understanding and always delivering and the needs of our customers and our consumers. But I think most of all was, how we did deliver our services. No longer are we just the brick and mortar, that, banking is much more than that. And, innovation, continuous improvement. That's important. Technology, of course, has catapulted up to the top of the list in terms of critical infrastructure and services. And so, you know, it's that, and then it's also leaning on your business partners or leaning on your third-party partners to help. You're not in it alone. Don't try to do it alone. But lean on, you know, Hawaiian Telcom, for example, we did in our planning. And so, yeah, you know, just try not to, don't think that you're in it alone, because you're not.
Thank you. Brad, you have the last word.
Sure. Well, you know, the pandemic definitely accelerated a lot of digital or IT transformational initiatives at PGL. So, you know, the biggest takeaway was how we were able to move quickly. And I think that's going to be important for us as we grow our company, is moving quickly and growing and being able to adapt to different conditions that not only within the marketplace, but even the expectations of our customers. They expect services to be delivered in a, you know, tech-enabled way, and we need to, you know, adapt and respond. And I think that will be some of the biggest takeaways, and will be some of the challenges for Pacific Guardian Life, is how do we deliver, again, our services and take care of our customers in a tech-enabled way.
Thank you. Sadly, we've run out of time, but I do want to share a couple of comments in the Q&A. We have one person saying, great information, mahalo to all. Another one, thank you for addressing the importance of emotional well-being during heavily technology-driven workdays. So thank you to our panel for a great discussion. Thank you to CBTS Hawaiian Telcom for hosting this webinar. If you didn't get a chance earlier, go to the chat box right now. Click on the link there that you can sign up for a free 1-hour consultation with an IT architect at Hawaiian Telcom. You know, click on that and bookmark that. Thank you for attending. I'm Steve Petranek, editor of Hawaii Business Magazine. Aloha and have a great day.